The Curse of Capistrano, also known as the Mark of Zorro. Written by Johnston McCulley. First published in 1919. This is an audiobook adaptation of The Curse of Capistrano, the original title under which this story first appeared in 1919, as a serial in the pulp magazine All Story Weekly. Johnston McCulley was an American author born in 1883, best known for creating the character of Zorro. The masked hero made his very first appearance in this story, and went on to become one of the most iconic figures in adventure fiction, inspiring countless films, television series, and comic books throughout the 20th century. In 1920, a silent film adaptation was released under the title The Mark of Zorro, starring Douglas Fairbanks. The film was a tremendous success, and when the original story was republished in book form in 1924, the publisher chose to adopt the title of the film, as it had become far more widely recognized by the public. From that point on, the story has been known by both names. But its roots remain here, in these pages, as The Curse of Capistrano. The story is set in early 19th century California, during the final years of Spanish colonial rule. It follows the mysterious outlaw known as Zorro, whose name means Mr. Fox in Spanish. Disguised behind a black mask, Zorro rides across El Camino Real, defending the poor and the oppressed against corrupt soldiers and greedy officials, and leaving his signature mark, the letter Z, carved with the tip of his blade. This work is in the public domain. We hope you enjoy the story. Chapter 1. Pedro, the Boaster. Again the sheet of rain beat against the roof of red Spanish tile, and the wind shrieked like a soul in torment, and smoke puffed from the big fireplace as the sparks were showered over the hard dirt floor. "'Tis a night for evil deeds," declared Sergeant Pedro Gonzalez, stretching his great feet in their loose boots toward the roaring fire and grasping the hilt of his sword in one hand and a mug filled with thin wine in the other. "Devils howl in the wind, and demons are in the raindrops. 'Tis an evil night, indeed." Senor? "It is." The fat landlord agreed hastily. And he made haste, also, to fill the wine mug again. For Sergeant Pedro Gonzalez had a temper that was terrible when aroused, as it always was when wine was not forthcoming. "An evil night," the big sergeant repeated, and drained the mug without stopping to draw breath. A feat that had attracted considerable attention in its time and had gained the sergeant a certain amount of notoriety up and down El Camino Real, as they called the highway that connected the missions in one long chain. Gonzalez sprawled closer to the fire and cared not that other men thus were robbed of some of its warmth. Sergeant Pedro Gonzalez often had expressed his belief that a man should look out for his own comfort before considering others. And being of great size and strength, and having much skill with the blade, he found few who had the courage to declare that they believed otherwise. Outside the wind shrieked, and the rain dashed against the ground in a solid sheet. It was a typical February storm for Southern California. At the missions the friars had cared for the stock and had closed the buildings for the night. At every great hacienda big fires were burning in the houses. The timid natives kept to their little adobe huts, glad for shelter. And here in the little pueblo of Reina de Los Angeles, where, in years to come, a great city would grow, the tavern on one side of the plaza housed, for the time being, men who would sprawl before the fire until the dawn rather than face the beating rain. Sergeant Pedro Gonzalez, by virtue of his rank and size, claimed the fireplace for himself. A corporal and 3 soldiers from the Presidio sat at a table a little behind him, drinking their thin wine and playing at cards. An Indian servant crouched on his heels in one corner. No converted soul who had accepted the religion of the friars, but a Gentile and a renegade. For this was in the day of the decadence of the missions. And there was little peace between the robed Franciscans who followed in the footsteps of the sainted Junipero Serra, who had founded the first mission at San Diego de Alcala, and thus made possible an empire, and those who followed the politicians and had high places in the army. The men who drank wine in the tavern at Reina de Los Angeles had no wish for a spying convert about them. Just now conversation had died out. a fact that annoyed the fat landlord and caused him some fear. For Sergeant Pedro Gonzalez in an argument was Sergeant Gonzalez at peace. And unless he could talk, the big soldier might feel moved to action and start a brawl. Twice before Gonzalez had done so, to the great damage of furniture and men's faces. And the landlord had appealed to the commander of the Presidio, Captain Ramon, only to be informed that the captain had an abundance of troubles of his own, and that running an inn was not one of them. So the landlord regarded Gonzalez warily and edged closer to the long table and spoke, in an attempt to start a general conversation and so avert trouble. "They are saying in the Pueblo," he announced, "that this Senor Zorro is abroad again." His words had an effect that was both unexpected and terrible to witness. Sergeant Pedro Gonzalez hurled his half-filled wine mug to the hard dirt floor, straightened suddenly on the bench, and crashed a ponderous fist down upon the table, causing wine mugs and cards and coins to scatter in all directions. The corporal and the 3 soldiers retreated a few feet in sudden fright, and the red face of the landlord went pale. The native sitting in the corner started to creep toward the door, having determined that he preferred the storm outside to the big sergeant's anger. "Senor Zorro, eh?" Gonzalez cried in a terrible voice. "Is it my fate always to hear that name? Senor Zorro, eh? Mr. Fox, in other words. He imagines, I take it, that he is as cunning as one. By the saints, he raises as much stench." Gonzalez gulped, turned to face them squarely, and continued his tirade. "He runs up and down the length of El Camino Real like a goat of the high hills. He wears a mask, and he flashes a pretty blade, they tell me. He uses the point of it to carve his hated letter Z on the cheek of his foe. Ha! The mark of Zorro they are calling it. A pretty blade he has, in truth. But I cannot swear as to the blade. I never have seen it. He will not do me the honor of letting me see it. Senor Zorro's depredations never occur in the vicinity of Sergeant Pedro Gonzalez. Perhaps this Senor Zorro can tell us the reason for that? Ha! He glared at the men before him, threw up his upper lip, and let the ends of his great black mustache bristle. They are calling him the Curse of Capistrano now, the fat landlord observed, stooping to pick up the wine mug and cards and hoping to filch a coin in the process. Curse of the entire highway and the whole mission chain. Sergeant Gonzalez roared. A cutthroat, he is. A thief. Ha! A common fellow presuming to get him a reputation for bravery because he robs a hacienda or so and frightens a few women and natives. Senor Zorro, eh? Here is one fox it gives me pleasure to hunt. Curse of Capistrano, eh? I know I have led an evil life, but I only ask of the saints one thing now. That they forgive me my sins long enough to grant me the chance of standing face to face with this pretty highwayman. There is a reward, the landlord began. You snatched the very words from my lips. Sergeant Gonzalez protested. There is a pretty reward for the fellow's capture, offered by His Excellency the Governor. And what good fortune has come to my blade? I am away on duty at San Juan Capistrano, and the fellow makes his play at Santa Barbara. I am at Reina de Los Angeles, and he takes a fat purse at San Luis Rey. I dine at San Gabriel, let us say, and he robs at San Diego de Alcala. A pest, he is. Once I met him. Sergeant Gonzalez choked on his wrath and reached for the wine mug, which the landlord had filled again and placed at his elbow. He gulped down the contents. Well, he never has visited us here, the landlord said with a sigh of thanksgiving. Good reason, fat one. Ample reason. We have a presidio here and a few soldiers. He rides far from any presidio, does this pretty Senor Zorro. He is like a fleeting sunbeam, I grant him that. And with about as much real courage. Sergeant Gonzalez relaxed on the bench again, and the landlord gave him a glance that was full of relief, and began to hope that there would be no breakage of mugs and furniture and men's faces this rainy night. Yet this Senor Zorro must rest at times. He must eat and sleep, the landlord said. It is certain that he must have some place for hiding and recuperation. Some fine day the soldiers will trail him to his den. "Ah," Gonzales replied. "Of course the man has to eat and sleep. And what is it that he claims now? He says that he is no real thief, by the saints. He is but punishing those who mistreat the men of the missions, he says. Friend of the oppressed, eh? He left a placard at Santa Barbara recently stating as much, did he not? Ah. And what may be the reply to that? The friars of the missions are shielding him, hiding him, giving him his meat and drink. Shake down a robed friar and you will find some trace of this pretty highwayman's whereabouts, else I am a lazy civilian. I have no doubt that you speak the truth, the landlord replied. I put it not past the friars to do such a thing. But may this Senor Zorro never visit us here. And why not, fat one? Sergeant Gonzales cried in a voice of thunder. Am I not here? Have I not a blade at my side? Are you an owl, and is this daylight, that you cannot see as far as the end of your puny, crooked nose? By the saints! I mean, said the landlord quickly and with some alarm, that I have no wish to be robbed. To be robbed of what, fat one? Of a jug of weak wine and a meal? Have you riches, fool? Ah! Let the fellow come. Let this bold and cunning Senor Zorro but enter that door and step before us. Let him make a bow, as they say he does, and let his eyes twinkle through his mask. Let me but face the fellow for an instant. And I claim the generous reward offered by His Excellency. He perhaps is afraid to venture so near the Presidio, the landlord said. More wine! Gonzales howled. More wine, fat one, and place it to my account. When I have earned the reward, you shall be paid in full. I promise it on my word as a soldier. Ha! Were this brave and cunning Senor Zorro, this Curse of Capistrano, but to make entrance at that door now. The door suddenly was opened. Chapter 2. On the heels of the storm. I have been speaking of this notorious Senor Zorro, he said. We have been regarding in conversation this fine Curse of Capistrano, as some nimble-witted fool has seen fit to term the pest of the highway. What about him? Don Diego asked, putting down his wine mug and hiding a yawn behind his hand. Those who knew Don Diego best declared he yawned 10 score times a day. I have been remarking, caballero, said the sergeant, that this fine Senor Zorro never appears in my vicinity, and that I am hoping the good saints will grant me the chance of facing him some fine day, that I may claim the reward offered by the governor. Senor Zorro, eh? Ah! Let us not speak of him, Don Diego begged, turning from the fireplace and throwing out one hand as if in protest. Shall it be that I never hear of anything except deeds of bloodshed and violence? Would it be possible in these turbulent times for a man to listen to words of wisdom regarding music or the poets? Meal, mush and goat's milk, snorted Sergeant Gonzales in huge disgust. If this Senor Zorro wishes to risk his neck, let him. It is his own neck, by the saints. A cutthroat. A thief. Ha! I have been hearing considerable concerning his work, Don Diego went on to say. The fellow, no doubt, is sincere in his purpose. He has robbed none except officials who have stolen from the missions and the poor, and punished none except brutes who mistreat natives. He has slain no man, I understand. Let him have his little day in the public eye, my sergeant. I would rather have the reward. Earn it, Don Diego said. Capture the man. Ha! Dead or alive, the governor's proclamation says. I myself have read it. Then stand you up to him and run him through, if such a thing pleases you, Don Diego retorted. And tell me all about it afterward. But spare me now. It will be a pretty story. Gonzales cried. And you shall have it entire, caballero, word by word. How I played with him, how I laughed at him as we fought, how I pressed him back after a time and ran him through. Afterward. But not now. Don Diego cried, exasperated. Landlord, more wine. The only manner in which to stop this raucous boaster is to make his wide throat so slick with wine that the words cannot climb out of it. The landlord quickly filled the mugs. Don Diego sipped at his wine slowly, as a gentleman should, while Sergeant Gonzales took his in 2 great gulps. And then the scion of the House of Vega stepped across to the bench and reached for his sombrero and his serape. What? The sergeant cried. You are going to leave us at such an early hour, caballero? You are going to face the fury of that beating storm? At least I am brave enough for that, Don Diego replied, smiling. I but ran over from my house for a pot of honey. The fools feared the rain too much to fetch me some this day from the hacienda. Get me one, landlord. I shall escort you safely home through the rain. Sergeant Gonzales cried, for he knew full well that Don Diego had excellent wine of age there. You shall remain here before the roaring fire, Don Diego told him firmly. I do not need an escort of soldiers from the Presidio to cross the plaza. I am going over accounts with my secretary, and possibly may return to the tavern after we have finished. I wanted the pot of honey that we might eat as we worked. Ha! And why did you not send that secretary of yours for the honey, caballero? Why be wealthy and have servants, if a man cannot send them on errands on such a stormy night? He is an old man and feeble, Don Diego explained. He also is secretary to my aged father. The storm would kill him. Landlord, serve all here with wine and put it to my account. I may return when my books have been straightened. Don Diego Vega picked up the pot of honey, wrapped his serape around his head, opened the door, and plunged into the storm and darkness. There goes a man! Gonzales cried, flourishing his arms. He is my friend, that caballero, and I would have all men know it. He seldom wears a blade, and I doubt whether he can use one. But he is my friend. The flashing dark eyes of lovely senoritas do not disturb him, yet I swear he is a pattern of a man. Music and the poets, eh? Ha! Has he not the right, if such is his pleasure? Is he not Don Diego Vega? Has he not blue blood and broad acres and great storehouses filled with goods? Is he not liberal? He may stand on his head or wear petticoats, if it please him. Yet I swear he is a pattern of a man. The soldiers echoed his sentiments, since they were drinking Don Diego's wine and did not have the courage to combat the sergeant's statements anyway. The fat landlord served them with another round, since Don Diego would pay. For it was beneath a Vega to look at his score in a public tavern, and the fat landlord many times had taken advantage of this fact. He cannot endure the thought of violence or bloodshed, Sergeant Gonzales continued. He is as gentle as a breeze of spring. Yet he has a firm wrist and a deep eye. It merely is the caballero's manner of seeing life. Did I but have his youth and good looks and riches. Ha! There would be a stream of broken hearts from San Diego de Alcala to San Francisco de Asas. And broken heads. The corporal offered. Ha! And broken heads, comrade. I would rule the country. No youngster should stand long in my way. Out with blade and at them. Cross Pedro Gonzales, eh? Ha! Through the shoulder, neatly. Ha! Through a lung. Gonzales was upon his feet now, and his blade had leaped from its scabbard. He swept it back and forth through the air, thrust, parried, lunged, advanced, and retreated, shouted his oaths, and roared his laughter as he fought with shadows. "That is the manner of it," he screeched at the fireplace. "What have we here? 2 of you against 1? So much the better, signores. We love brave odds. Ha! Have it, you dog! Die, hound! One side, poltroon!" He reeled against the wall, gasping, his breath almost gone, the point of his blade resting on the floor, his great face purple with the exertion and the wine he had consumed. While the corporal and the soldiers and the fat landlord laughed long and loudly at this bloodless battle from which Sergeant Pedro Gonzalez had emerged the unquestioned victor. Were this fine Senor Zorro only before me here and now? The sergeant gasped. And again the door was opened suddenly, and a man entered the inn on a gust of the storm. Chapter 3. Senor Zorro pays a visit. The native hurried forward to fasten the door against the force of the wind, and then retreated to his corner again. The newcomer had his back toward those in the long room. They could see that his sombrero was pulled far down on his head, as if to prevent the wind from whisking it away, and that his body was enveloped in a long cloak that was wringing wet. With his back still toward them, he opened the cloak and shook the raindrops from it, and then folded it across his breast again. The fat landlord hurried forward, rubbing his hands together in expectation, for he deemed that here was some caballero off the highway who would pay good coin for food and bed and care for his horse. When the landlord was within a few feet of him, the stranger whirled around. The landlord gave a little cry of fear and retreated with speed. The corporal gurgled deep down in his throat. The soldiers gasped. Sergeant Pedro Gonzalez allowed his lower jaw to drop and let his eyes bulge. For the man who stood straight before them had a black mask over his face that effectually concealed his features, and through the 2 slits in it his eyes glittered ominously. "Ha! What have we here?" Gonzalez gasped finally, some presence of mind returning to him. The man before them bowed. "Senor Zorro, at your service," he said. "By the saints! Senor Zorro, eh?" Gonzalez cried. "Do you doubt it, Senor? If you are indeed Senor Zorro, then have you lost your wits?" The sergeant declared. "What is the meaning of that speech? You are here, are you not? You have entered the inn, have you not? By all the saints, you have walked into a trap, my pretty highwayman. Will the Senor please explain?" Senor Zorro asked. His voice was deep and held a peculiar ring. "Are you blind? Are you without sense?" Gonzalez demanded. "Am I not here? And what has that to do with it? Am I not a soldier? At least you wear a soldier's garb, Senor. By the saints! And cannot you see the good corporal and 3 of our comrades? Have you come to surrender your wicked sword, Senor? Are you finished playing at rogue?" Senor Zorro laughed, not unpleasantly, but he did not take his eyes from Gonzalez. "Most certainly I have not come to surrender," he said. "I am on business, Senor." "Business?" Gonzalez queried. "For days ago, Senor, you brutally beat a native who had won your dislike. The affair happened on the road between here and the mission at San Gabriel. He was a surly dog and got in my way. And how does it concern you, my pretty highwayman? I am the friend of the oppressed, Senor, and I have come to punish you." "Come to punish me, fool? You punish me? I shall die of laughter before I can run you through. You are as good as dead, Senor Zorro. His Excellency has offered a pretty price for your carcass. If you are a religious man, say your prayers. I would not have it said that I slew a man without giving him time to repent his crimes. I give you the space of 100 heartbeats. You are generous, Senor, but there is no need for me to say my prayers." "Then must I do my duty," said Gonzalez, and lifted the point of his blade. "Corporal, you will remain by the table, and the men also. This fellow and the reward he means are mine." He blew out the ends of his mustache and advanced carefully, not making the mistake of underestimating his antagonist, for there had been certain tales of the man's skill with a blade. And when he was within the proper distance he recoiled suddenly, as if a snake had warned of a strike. For Senor Zorro had allowed one hand to come from beneath his cloak, and the hand held a pistol. The most damnable of weapons to Sergeant Gonzalez. "Back, Senor!" Senor Zorro warned. "Ha! So that is the way of it!" Gonzalez cried. "You carry that devil's weapon and threaten men with it. Such things are for use only at a long distance and against inferior foes. Gentlemen prefer the trusty blade. Back, Senor! There is death in this you call the devil's weapon. I shall not warn again. Somebody told me you were a brave man." Gonzalez taunted, retreating a few feet. "It has been whispered that you would meet any man foot to foot and cross blades with him. I have believed it of you. And now I find you resorting to a weapon fit for nothing except to use against red natives. Can it be, Senor, that you lack the courage I have heard you possess?" Senor Zorro laughed again. "As to that, you shall see presently," he said. "The use of this pistol is necessary at the present time. I find myself pitted against large odds in this tavern, Senor. I shall cross blades with you gladly when I have made such a proceeding safe." "I wait anxiously," Gonzalez sneered. "The corporal and soldiers will retreat to that far corner," Senor Zorro directed. "Landlord, you will accompany them. The native will go there also. Quickly, senores." "Thank you. I do not wish to have any of you disturbing me while I am punishing this sergeant here." "Ha!" Gonzalez screeched in fury. "We shall soon see as to the punishing, my pretty fox." "I shall hold the pistol in my left hand," Senor Zorro continued. "I shall engage this sergeant with my right, in the proper manner, and as I fight I shall keep an eye on the corner. The first move from any of you, senores, means that I fire. I am expert with this you have termed the devil's weapon, and if I fire, some men shall cease to exist on this earth of ours. Is it understood?" The corporal and soldiers and landlord did not take the trouble to answer. Senor Zorro looked Gonzalez straight in the eyes again, and a chuckle came from behind his mask. "Sergeant, you will turn your back until I can draw my blade," he directed. "I give you my word as a caballero that I shall not make a foul attack." "As a caballero?" Gonzalez sneered. "I said it, Senor." Zorro replied, his voice ringing a threat. Gonzalez shrugged his shoulders and turned his back. In an instant he heard the voice of the highwayman again. "On guard, Senor."